Welcome to the 8th Annual Mayor's Roundtable. My name is Matt Mucci, and this is Donna Sheehan, and we are the co-chairs of the Polk Vision government team.
As we get started, we want to ask each of you to mute your phones, but leave them out because we're giving you the opportunity to text your questions at the number up on the screen, which is 863-512-2026. So as the conversation continues, feel free to text your questions and we'll be sure to share them and get many of them answered. Also, as we get started, we want to thank those sponsors who helped make this event happen. With their generosity, we were able to have this Mayor's Roundtable today. And our sponsors include Polk State College, Duke Energy, and Citizens Bank and Trust. So we appreciate their generosity. Thank you very, very much, our sponsors. The texting number again is 863-512-2026, and it's up on the screen as well, should you not get that.
And in addition to the distinguished mayors we have behind us, there are some elected officials in the audience, so if you would stand and be recognized. Thank you for being here. Oh, sorry. Before we get started, Mayor Mutz, would you lead us in an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure, let's stand together, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessing of being able to gather today, really to do what you desire to have done where we live, which is enhance the lives of people, look for opportunities to be able to serve more effectively, and to do it in a way that we work responsibly. And so we would pray during this time that you give us good engagement in terms of both the discussions that we have as well as the questions that are asked, and that we do this in a way that's pleasing to you. We ask all these things in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Also want to be sure to make mention of the fact that we want to honor J.R. Sullivan in his passing this last weekend, and so you want to keep Eagle Lake and his family in your prayers.
Thank you. And to get things started, we want to introduce to you our moderator for the day. It is Katie Worthington, who's sitting at the center of the table. And she serves as the president of the Winter Haven Chamber of Commerce, and we are very pleased to have her here with us as a volunteer to get the conversation started. So Katie, take it away.
All right, very good. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for all being here this morning to be a part of democracy. It's exciting to have so many people in the room, as well as the opportunity to get so many of our elected leaders together. Just a couple housekeeping items to start. First, these are all hot mics. So don't say anything that you wouldn't want recorded. So the nice. Danzler brothers on the end down there, don't be whispering to each other. We're going to hear it. So the sound engineers have asked that if you do turn them, try not to turn them off, but if you do turn them off, remember to turn them back on because no one will hear what you're saying. So if you can leave them on, the blue light means they're on, so try to leave them on if you can. This is being recorded for PGTV, so anything that you will say will be recorded in posterity as well. So that's my caveat to you all this morning as well. Please remember to talk into the mic. You each have individual mics as well. I would like to echo Mayor Mutt's sentiments to give our thoughts and prayers to the family of Eagle Lake Mayor J.R. Sullivan. Public service is one of the highest honors that you can give to give back to your community, and we appreciate everything that he did for our neighboring community of Eagle Lake, and I think it's important to remember that. So this morning we're going to do introductions, and you're going to hear me talk for a little bit, but we wanted to share a little bit about each of our elected officials that are up here this morning. They are seated by alphabetical order by city, so we are actually going to start with Auburndale this morning, and Mayor Tim Poskapel. Mayor Tim Poskapel graduated Auburndale High School in 1976 and is a former professional musician who traveled the United States for many years, appearing on television shows, and has played in the Grand Ole Opry, Opryland Park, and the General Jackson Showboat. He was appointed to office in 2012 to fill Jack Meyer's seat when he decided to run for Senate. He is passionate about history, particularly military history, and was the president of the Tennessee Military Collectors Association in Nashville before working with the Polk County Historical Commission. He has an impressive collection of World War I and World War II memorabilia. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Poskapel.
Thank you.
Bartow Mayor Leo Longworth is here with us this morning. His inaugural run for the City Commission was in 1995, when incumbent Ronald Subb decided to step down from the 5-member board. Longworth was unopposed in his bid for election, and it wouldn't be the last time. He's been elected to the Bartow City Commission 8 times and hasn't purchased his first campaign sign. So sorry for the rest of you.
We need to learn from you.
He's never had to because he has never drawn opposition. It's also a little-known fact that Mayor Longworth's family donated the land for Union Academy, and his family has taught at Union Academy for generations, going back to his great-grandmother. So they certainly are a family that are passionate about public education. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Leo Longworth. Yes, and he is also, Charlie doesn't want me to forget, even though I'd say it later, he is also the president of the Florida League of Cities this year, which is a high honor. He's representing us across the state. Next we have Mayor Rob Robinson with Davenport. Prior to his retirement in 1992, when he moved to Davenport, Rob Robinson held the rank of major and served as the commander of the Detectives Division for the North Miami Police Department. He considers public service his personal mission, and since coming to Polk County, has held the position of police chief, interim city manager, city commissioner, vice mayor, and mayor. When asked what he had to say about all his various roles he's played in local government, his answer was, "I just can't keep a job." So please join me in welcoming Mayor Robinson. Next we have Dundee Mayor Sam Pennant. Mayor Pennant was born in Jamaica and came to South Florida in 1985. While visiting the Central Florida area, he discovered Dundee and fell in love with the small town. He found the quiet, laid-back, quaint town very attractive and suitable to his own lifestyle, and so he moved to Dundee in 2006. He was first elected to the City Commission in 2010 because he wanted to make a difference in his community. He wasn't sure he could make things better, but he was certain that if he was involved, he couldn't make things any worse, and so they certainly are the better for it. It's a very honest answer. So, Mayor Pennant, please join me in welcoming him here today. I did want to note that the mayor of Frostproof, Martin Sullivan, had planned here to be here today but was unable to make it, and so we want to thank him for his service as well. Next, we have Mayor Morris West of Haines City. The West family has roots in the Haines City area dating back 80 years. Mayor West was elected to the commission in 2016 and is currently serving his first term as mayor. His brother is also a Haines City Commissioner, Horace West, and he has served on the commission since 2001. Now, I know I could not serve on an elected body with my siblings, so I commend you for being able to do that. Prior to his being elected, Mayor West had a 22-year career with the Haines City Police Department. He is also very active in the business community and is a job creator. He owns his own company called United Protective Security Services in the wonderful city of Winter Haven. So thank you very much. Please join me in welcoming Mayor West here this morning. Next, we have the person who posts to Twitter almost as much as Donald Trump, just kidding, Lake Alfred Mayor Charles Lake. Charlie Was born and bred as a New Yorker and retired from a 50-year career in the magazine publishing business and moved to Polk County in 2008. He quickly became active in his community of Lake Alfred and now considers himself a Floridian. Mayor Lake has continuously served on the City of Lake Alfred Commission since 2012. He was appointed to fill a vacant seat for the remainder of the term, and he also has run unopposed since that point. And so he certainly is a cheerleader for Lake Alfred, and if you do not follow him on social media, I highly recommend you do. He will certainly keep you up to date, everything going on in that community. His motto is making a difference, it's what I do, which sounds like a campaign sign that you haven't had to use yet, so. I do want to point out that Lake Wales Mayor Eugene Fultz is on a mission trip, so he is putting on his service hat in a different realm and is unable to be with us today. Next, we have Lake Hamilton Mayor Marlene Wagner. Mayor Wagner is now serving her fourth three-year term after being reelected in April of last year. She's a two-term past president of the Ridge League of Cities, serving in 2010 and 2014, and has held the office of secretary, treasurer, and vice president. She has 6 children, 7 grandchildren, 8 great-grandchildren, with a very wide range in age. Before moving to Florida 15 years ago, she was an administrator for a large cemetery corporation in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Wagner. Next, we have someone new to politics, Lakeland Mayor Bill Mutz. Elected to office last fall, Mayor Mutz is serving his first term as mayor of the city of Lakeland. He was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and graduated from Indiana University in 1976, and later moved to Lakeland in 1996, where he became the president of Lakeland Auto Mall, where I bought my first car. In 2012, Bill left Lakeland Auto Mall and took on the role of managing partner for both the Green Star Panels and Greennovative Homes. Then in 2014, Bill became a senior consultant for Claridge Associates, where he remains today. Mayor Mutz and his wife Pam have been married for over 40 years and share a love that I think we have all seen and recognized in our community. They are the parents of 12 children, 7 boys and 5 girls. 6 of them, I love that this is added on there, 6 of them are graduates of the University of Florida. My condolences for this weekend. But UCF is still undefeated. I'm just going to add that in there. Thank you.
It's not our year.
It's not your year. Next, we have Mulberry Mayor George Hatch. Following a 36-year career with Polk County Public Schools, George Hatch was elected mayor of Mulberry in 2010. With a passion for high school-age students, George was in the classroom for 12 years, an assistant principal for 12, and a principal for 12 years when he retired from Mulberry High School. George is an accomplished woodworker whose work will be on display as part of the Lakeland Woodworkers exhibition at the Mulberry Cultural Arts Center in October. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Hatch.
Thank you.
Next, we have Polk City Mayor Joe LaCascia. Mayor LaCascia was born and raised in New York City and made his career in a family-owned business, Ocean Marine Insurance. Shortly after moving to Polk City, he became involved in 2008 on the Planning Commission and became mayor in 2009. He has a direct management style and is plain-spoken because he's a New Yorker, and believing that buntless is the pathway to progress, and we appreciate that about you. So please join me. Joe also rides a 30-year-old Harley Davidson and is an avid snow skier, which you get to do a lot here in your residence in Florida. So please join me in welcoming Mayor LaCascia. Next, we have Mayor Brad Danzler with the City of Winter Haven. Mayor Danzler was elected during a special election in the spring of 2013 and then re-elected in 2017. He's currently serving his second term as mayor. A Winter Haven native, Brad is a third-generation Winter Haven City Commissioner. And Brad has a passion for the arts, and I think a lot of us know that in this community. He was integral in starting the Winter Haven Arts Council, and even last night commented at the City Commission meeting, which, by the way, he's gotten down to lasting no longer than an hour and a half, so we appreciate that, that every one of the commissioners in their report mentioned an arts event that they had attended, and so he was very proud of the fact that arts has become such a part of the fabric of the Winter Haven community, and so thank you for your leadership on that. And then next to Brad, yes. And then next to Brad is the chair of the Polk County Board of County Commissioners, his brother, Todd Dantzler. Commissioner Todd Dantzler was first elected to the County Commission in 2010 and currently serves as chairman. He has worked to provide strong, effective leadership to the residents of Polk. His time in office is highlighted by efforts to drive economic development, increase public involvement, and create a more efficient government. He's a strong advocate for economic development and is heavily involved with the Central Florida Development Council. Todd frequently states that of the three Dantzler brothers, that their mother liked Todd the best. So we obviously have a group of people that are joining us today that are all about Polk County and all about public service. And it takes a lot to put yourself out there, be under sunshine, have your lives out in the public. And so first and foremost, before we get started today, let's give everyone up here a big thank you and a round of applause for that dedication. One housekeeping item, we do want to be very conscious of time and respectful of that. So I do ask that you keep your answers succinct if possible. And if I do ask a follow-up question or direct to others, we just want to make sure that we get as much people's input as possible. So the first question that I'm going to ask, and we'll just actually start and go down the line as kind of a starter question, is what is the number one, and really talking about one issue or concern that you hear about from your constituents today? Mayor Possible?
Probably this is going to be a very common answer with everyone, but it's to keep our taxes as low as we can without sacrificing any of our services that we give our citizens. That seems to be the most popular question that I'm asked and were posed, especially during budget time of year. And that other thing, water.
Water.
And
Okay.
water.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Longworth?
Okay, yes. And thank you for allowing us to be here as well. This is a great forum. So I think ours is probably things that are related to codes enforcement, slum and blight, grass need mowing, houses need fixing, repairing, and those things are just all the time, and especially during the rainy season. So we get a lot of complaints about that. And the other thing is the condition of streets, curbs, and sidewalks.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor.
Water, public transportation. And my commission's heard me cry about this a lot. When I moved to Dade County from the farm to northern Dade County, northwest, no paved roads, no sidewalks, no street lights, but we had public transportation within a bus stop, within within a half a mile of everyone's home. And they ran from the north end of the county to downtown Miami. And there was a time when Mom stayed home. There was only one car. And I just don't understand how in 1945 we could have transportation like that. We don't have it here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Bennett?
Thank you, ma'am. I think as we go along and trying to answer this question here, we will have a lot of rebuttal because I would like to also make reference to the possibility that we might have a tax hike and how it might affect everything we do in our town. Also, one other concern I have, which I think maybe some of the other municipalities does have also, is grants. Where does grant goes nowadays? It seems like the grants that we used to be able to receive, they're drying up. So as a result, it's requiring more from our everyday budget to fill those gaps. So as time goes by, maybe I might be calling on some of my counterpart to see how are they able to fill the gap that the grants are not filling anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett. Mayor West?
Thank you for this. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. A couple of concerns that we have in the city of Haines City. First and foremost is transportation issues, where we are having a difficult time. If you ever travel the roads of Highway 27 between Haines City and Interstate 4, years ago it would actually take you, maybe 10 minutes to get the I-4. Now, if you're traveling, it'll take you 25 minutes to get the I-4. So that 27 corridor, the I-4, is a really bad issue for us, and that's one of our main concerns. The second concern that our citizens and our constituents have is that affordable homes. Affordable homes is sometimes there's individuals who want their own home, but they just can't afford them. So there's grants and opportunities out there that we can look into to try to help our constituents and our citizens as well to get affordable homes. So those are the two key issues that we're currently having besides the water, but those are the two main issues. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mayor Lake?
Thank you. I think our number one issue is, the question I get asked the most is, when is the Dunkin' Donuts going in?
Priorities.
And the second question is, what's going on that lot? And I keep telling them it's a Marriott hotel, and that shuts them up real quick. Actually, now we have a couple of things that keep coming to us all the time. It's Parks and Recreation is one item. We have a lot of parks in Lake Alfred, and we are working on plans now. We did a Parks and Rec overload plan to work on these parks, clean them up, make them better, make them all walkability for everybody, and that's one of our number one issues. The other one, of course, I've been pushing for the past 4 years is our traffic problems. And Commissioner Lindsay is here, and he knows that. I've made an issue of that at every TPO meeting, and everybody says, what can we do to slow the traffic down? And I say, get a few cars to crash, and that'll stop the traffic. But they won't let me do that either. But those are our issues right now. There are a few others.
Thank you. Mayor Wagner?
I'm just about the same as every other town, and water is one of our main issues, but we are in the process of getting new water lines through the town, which will take care of a lot of our, I think we have water lines that were put in 1923 that we've been finding, and that will be replaced, and of course after that's done, we're looking for roads. But we also have some problems with code enforcement, and which we are also working on, and that's probably about the water. It seems like to be a big issue and I myself personally worry about transit. I just think the older I get, we need a way to get around.
Mayor Metz?
Well, certainly agree with each of the points. And I would wrap that up as I think about Lakeland in terms of our greatest concern would come under the category of economic growth, responsible economic growth. And in that, how we handle broadband, how we handle our transportation and parking, how we handle our commercial air carrier service that will help the entire county in that regard, and working towards that end so that we don't have to do the Tampa-Orlando drives in order to be able to get there. So when we think about what we can be doing for economic growth and how we sustain the impact in the areas of education and the people around it, that's all part of that. And so it would be nice to have one answer and one issue for us to all be working on, but we don't live in that world. And so I'd say categorically that's it for us.
Very good. Thank you. Mayor Hatch?
Thank you again for being here. Our number one issue is not taxes and water, because we've dealt with those and got major funding to deal with those in the last couple of years. But right now, and it's not something you really like to talk about, but it's sewer. And if you've read about it, there was a major sewer backup at one of our local elementary schools, and we've dealt with that. But what it is, it's what's called INI project, inflow and infiltration, where rainwater gets into your sewer water, and you have to treat more water when it rains, blah, blah, blah. And, but anyway, we're actually in the construction phase of dealing with that. There was a planning stage and a design stage, and now is a construction phase. And the citizens are having to deal with that because they're tearing up roads and replacing pipes and slip lining pipes and doing all that. But we're dealing with it, and soon, I hope, it will be over. But that's all. That's the major thing.
I think that's one of the most interesting things when you become an elected official. You have your subject matter area that you're familiar with from your life, and then you come in and you have to learn every single facet about sewer and traffic and things of those natures, and really make sure you have staff you can rely on as well.
It's hard for the average taxpayer to grasp that because it's not something you can see. You know, it's all underground, and, you know, as long as it's not bothering me, I don't want to deal with it.
Right,
So
right.
that's-
Well, in sewer, most people don't want to deal with
No.
so.
Most people, how about all people?
Very good. Mayor LaCascia?
I think what is a common concern of all of the mayors at this table probably is the complacency of the people in our cities. It has been basically left to the mayors and commissioners to try to explain the water problem which we're facing through Polk Regional Water Co-op that we're trying to address, the transportation issue that is needed in all of the cities. That may not be surprising to hear me say that coming from New York City. I was riding subways and buses when I was 12 and 13 years old throughout all the boroughs in New York City. So I know times were different then. And other people looked out after children on subways and transit, any other transit conveyance. And the homestead exemption. You know, how can it was basically left to the commissioners to explain a lot of obtuse language in a homestead exemption, which I'm not sure most of the people in this room, or even the commissioners and mayors sitting at this table probably can understand, yet we're left to explain it to our respective constituencies. Transportation and transit, as I said, absolutely necessary. A stagnant city just doesn't move. To be vital, you have to get out of your house. That's the first step. And if you don't have means of transportation in an aging community that I live in, I characterize it as an over 95 community. People aren't driving as much. They're in golf carts all over the place, but they're not driving cars. And the water issue has to be brought to their attention as well, and I'm not sure how we're all dealing with that.
Mayor Dancer?
Okay, before I begin, I want to make a quick comment about what I remember my mother saying. You know, we all have these fictitious things in our mind that we remember back in the day, and of course I'm the youngest, but I remember my mom talking about how she had 2 cracks at the apple and it was not perfect, but she finally had her last one. She said, "I finally hit perfection, I can stop now." That's what I remember saying, so my mom saying.
Obviously a thespian.
Yes, yes. So. But to answer the question, what I hear from my citizens of Winter Haven mainly is managing our growth. Winter Haven is having a big growth spurt right now, and people are saying, how are we going to manage all this growth? Please fix our roads. Watch out for the traffic. We don't want to have traffic. We don't want to spend 10 minutes at every traffic light, so please manage the growth. And I hear an awful lot, when are we getting a Target? So that's what I hear.
You and me both, Brad. Target.
Yeah, Brad obviously showed up drunk this morning.
Don't tell my mother.
Yeah, he was the third and last, and Mom just said, "I give up."
Nirvana.
He got away with murder. I'd like to make a couple of points. I'd like to recognize 2 of my commissioners, George Lindsay, who is our vice chairman of our commission, and Melanie Bell, who served with me for the last 7.5 years. And also 2 of our constitutionals, Marcia Fox, who is our property appraiser, who is arguably one of the best, if not the best, in the state. And I say that as a realtor. She is recognized by the Florida Association of Realtors in her leadership. So I want to congratulate you and thank you for what all you do for us. And Stacy Butterfield, our clerk, just found out this morning that she's going to be president of the Florida Association of Clerks or whatever it is, starting next year. I don't know if that's the official name, but I'm telling you, the constitutionals that we have are phenomenal. Grady gets the airtime, but all the others do wonderful work for all of us, as every citizen in each one of the cities is also a citizen of the county. So I want to thank them for what they do for us also. The biggest issues I think that we have comments about are public safety and fire and rescue. That's what we're focusing on right now. Obviously water, obviously transportation, these are all part of it. But if you ask anyone, they want to be safe and they want the ambulance to get there within a couple of minutes of when the call goes out. And no one argues about the cost of an ambulance when it's coming to pick them up to take them to the hospital. So those are probably our biggest issues that we're dealing with right now.
What percentage of your budget goes to, sorry to put you on the spot with that, but what percentage of your budget goes to public safety?
75%.
75%.
When you look at, well, actually, I think the sheriff's office is more than 100% of the general fund.
That's just for the hair and makeup, though.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Strike that from the record.
You do know he knows where you live.
I know.
But I mean, but those are the biggest issues: is fire safety and police. And you know, people make fun of Grady and say, "I can't believe he does this." He uses TV as a tool to help with crime fighting. So I've got no problem what he does. He's professional. Great. You encounter any of his officers or any of their employees, they are totally professional in a very, very difficult job that I think, God, I don't have to do. And there's people like him and his men and women to do.
Absolutely. We should all be very proud of our sheriff's department. Absolutely. Okay, so thank you all for kind of addressing those issues. That will be the platform for the questions that we'll be having today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I'll kind of target some questions. If you have something that you would like to add to a particular topic, or you have a question that you would like to get some information from one of your counterparts up here, Polk Vision has put these red. It's kind of like the steak places where you get more meat if you do green and you do. So if you would like to contribute, and for some reason I'm not seeing you, just turn it to green so I know that you would like to make a comment on that, or raise your hand or say, Katie, I'd like to add to that. But I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to chime in on something that's important to their community. Okay? So the first question I want to ask actually has something to do with what Mayor Pennant said, which was grants. One of the questions that you had was about grants. Everyone knows, and everyone here is in their budget cycle right now, finding how to get everything done that your constituents want to get done is very difficult, because you have even though we got good news from Marsha Fox this year in terms of property values, it still is never enough. And so part of what I've heard is, how do we collaborate? How do we get access to grants and that sort of thing? So the first question I want to pitch is to Mayor Brad Dantzler in Winter Haven. You've recently had several successful projects partnering kind of outside the box on some, and I'm specifically referencing the Highway 27 project, and the Cypress Gardens Boulevard project that you mentioned last night. Could you share a little bit about collaboration with state agencies and federal agencies to get some of this work done?
Yes. In terms of grants, one of the things that I've come to learn with Mike Herr as our city manager, and just doing this for a while, that when you go to Tallahassee, and I highly recommend that we all go to Tallahassee, because every time we go up there, we've had success. In the last couple of weeks, we were awarded a $35,000 grant for a economic development study for the Florenceville area, and it's something that's 20 years. We had a plan 20 years ago, and they're going to come down and do this big study. It's going to take probably 15 months to do this, but then we're going to have an actual plan in place on things that we can do. Same way with Normeo Hall and different things. what we've noticed is when you go to ask for grants, whether it's through DOT or through the Florida Opportunity, if you have some of your own money and you're asking them to help you, and you're willing to put some of your own skin in the game, your success is your opportunity for success goes way up, and that's something that we've tried to focus on, whether it's through airport grants. We've achieved millions of dollars on airport grants for airports, but it's always the fact that we have some of our own money and we're asking for help, and that's the one thing that I think that has helped us with our grant process is we never go in not putting in having some of our own skin in the game. And that's a good point. And I used to talk about this with Howard Wiggs and with Mayor Mutz, that there's a lot of things when we all go up to Tallahassee, we can help each other. You know, something at Winter Haven is important to us, like North Mayo Hall, may not be important to somebody in Bartow, but if you guys can speak up and help us with North Mayo Hall, then when something comes up that's important to Bartow, we can help speak up in that. And so I think there can be some more collaboration among the mayors of helping each other have a more unified voice when we're advocating for things in Tallahassee and then also in Washington, D.C. I think we have more success in Tallahassee, but you know, the trips to D.C. and the trips to Tallahassee are important, and sometimes they're better than others, but I think that's been a big success for Winter Haven.
Yes, and for those of you that aren't aware, one of the projects on Highway 27 is a collaboration between the City of Winter Haven and the Florida Department of Transportation that really has never been done before. They were doing road improvements, and this will affect Haines City and Dundee and kind of down the line. And they were going to be doing some road improvements and going to be digging up anyway. And we all hear that dig once policy. And those of you on the staff side as well as on the elected side know the efficiency of being able to do everything underground you need to do if you dig while you're doing another project. And so the collaboration with the DOT on this project allows conduit to be laid from essentially Winter Haven all the way up. Mayor, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I didn't really answer your question, but that's exactly,
That's okay.
I'm sorry I got started on my own high horse, but yeah, the dig once policy is something that Winter Haven's been an advocate of for years, and it's paying off now. And it's something that we, again, as we start this water cooperative and we start putting in this big water line loop, it's something we need to all be aware of. And it has to do with internet, you know, with high-speed internet for everybody, because Lakeland has it and Winter Haven has it, and we're ultimately going to connect, and that's going to help the sheriff and the schools department. But we need everybody. And when we dig, and we're going to put in these, when we're ultimately over the next 10 years, we're going to be having a big, huge water connectivity among all of us. Why not dig once and have dark fiber put in, and then we can have high-speed internet for everybody. And we're doing that now on Highway 27. So there's no reason that we as mayors can't advocate for this. Get the county to pay for it, of course, as they're digging. But
Just kidding.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No,
about
he's
that. If they want to, that's great. But when we're going to dig this big hole anyway, why not go ahead and throw some dark fiber down there, and then, you know, some other communities can tie in, and all of a sudden, who's to say Polk County can't become some high-speed mecca for you know, Amazon and all these other places that want to come here? You got to start somewhere. So dig once.
Absolutely, thank you. And I would also like to point out, Leah West is here in the audience from Congressman Darren Soto's office, if there's anyone else representing elected officials from Washington, D.C. But the collaboration also goes up to Washington, and I do want to thank Leah as well as Senator or Congressman Ross and Tom Rooney's office, because they have been able to write letters of support for grants. One in particular is the Central Florida Regional Planning Council. Recently was awarded $300,000 to investigate the aviation industry in Polk County and Highlands County. And so that was a collaborative effort between two counties, municipalities as well, but because of the support of our elected officials in D.C., that grant was able to be filtered down here. So a lot of it has to do with conversations and working those. Does anyone else have anything to add in terms of grants or that collaborative kind of spirit? Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to say how much the collaboration that Mayor Danzler is referring to is important. We have seen what it has done so far with the water cooperative, or with get us to work together, and I think that kind of example is very important to each and every one of us. To where I just want to let all municipality here be aware that on the eastern side of the county, on the ridge, we are doing some collaboration. We have formed an advocacy group, East Polk County advocacy group, starting from Frost Proof all along the ridge to Davenport, because we realize that together we are more effective with whatever we do. As Mayor Danzler was saying, maybe we need to get together on a more regular basis and go to Tallahassee so our voice can be more loudly heard. So I think in a lot of things we do as we go along, we might have to look to working together more rather than attacking some of these problems unilaterally. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Together our voices are much louder. Mayor West?
Yes, I'll just like to concur with Mayor Danzler from Winter Haven in reference to the grants. I think the grants go beyond the state of Florida. Last year, we was able to reach out to our DC office and our local representative to be able to get grants for our fire department. So I agree. I think that individually we may not be able to do it, but collectively as mayors of each municipality here, that if we work together in unison, that we can get a lot more done. So I just want to concur with what he said. Now, thank you for that comment, Mayor.
Absolutely. Mayor Metz?
And I'd agree with that 100%. We're in an era where our cities have to work collectively together at an accelerated rate, and we need to expect that we'd want to. And I certainly hope that you know that from our standpoint in Lakeland, we think and talk Polk County and want to be as supportive of those efforts as possible. And so we need to be predisposed to do that on an increasing basis, because the issues are going to become larger than us, you know, as an individual city. So certainly we have our responsibilities first locally, but we must think as a county together.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, just real quick. What's also important, feeding into the legislators and congresspersons, is it's important for us as member cities to have relationships with our legislators and our congresspersons, and many of our cities do. But that really helps to not just go up, and many cities do this or don't do this, not just go up during the session, but stay in touch with them and communicate with them during the year so you can establish that relationship. Our city was awarded several $1 million for our wastewater plant expansion, and it was because of the relationships that we established. And somebody said, I don't know if it was Mayor Danzler, somebody was saying about going up to Tallahassee as a group and meet with the legislative officials. That is very important. But not only during the session, but also outside of the session. And the other thing that's important is something I'll talk about, I guess, a little later, is we can engage some citizens to help us as well. We have been working and advocating just as elected officials, but what about citizens? What about people sitting in the audience? Some of them will be are happy, glad to work with us if they understood what we're doing. And they do understand many parts, but I think somebody pointed out about Amendment 1. Most people don't understand it. So it's a matter of educating citizens as well. And again, as I said, I'll probably talk about that a little bit later on.
And why don't we, while you've got the microphone, Mayor Longworth, why don't, as the chair of the Florida League of Cities, obviously you're very familiar with their platform. And something that they have focused on at their conference and made the centerpiece is home rule. So one, for the benefit of the audience, many of which are familiar, but could you define what home rule is and then speak to the Florida League of Cities platform, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so home rule was established 50 years ago in 1968. And home rule is basically, in layman terms, because again, that's one of those issues I think that people don't understand. What's home rule? Home rule was established by the will of the people. It is in Article 8 of the Florida Constitution. And most average layperson probably does not know that. But home rule is about local self-government. It's about allowing local communities to make local decisions locally. Those decisions that should be made according to the Constitution by cities. Okay, so the Florida League of Cities represented, it's an advocacy organization for cities, for 412 cities, towns, and villages. So like each president has a priority. The last president's priority was let cities work. And this was a message to the legislators, to let us work, let us make decisions locally. So my priority, I went in office, I was installed in August. So my priority, all right, so let cities work is the elected officials telling the legislators. So my priority, and we still will use that let cities work because it was so effective. But my priority is we live local. And we live local is educating our Floridians about why local self-government works and why it's something we ought to protect. So, you know, the way we look at it is okay, all right, so we got these distant politicians, and I call them distant politicians because they are in Tallahassee, and we're in Bartow, we're in Winter Haven, we're in Davenport, we're in Auburndale, we're in Lakeland. Okay, so by us being local, we eat local, we shop local, we give local, we live local. And it's desirable because what that does is celebrates the uniqueness of our communities. It's the best of in our neighborhoods. We can feel the impact, we can taste the difference, and we can see the beauty. So we know what we need. We know what works best in our communities, and so we should decide. So that's one of the things that, that's my priority for the year, and it's about educating residents. So I talked about that earlier, about educating residents on all aspects of the things, or at least most of the things that we deal with in the cities. So home rule is being infringed upon. Let me just tell you this real quick. Last year, and Chair Dantzler can attest to this, last year, and as well as the commissioners, county commissioners here, last year, and city commissioners, last year, the last legislative session, which was this year, there were so many infringements on home rule. And home rule is, again, what? Let cities make our local decisions. Let cities make decisions locally. Now, it's not like a pothole that you see and it needs to be fixed. Say, hey, Leo, you need to fix this pothole. In fact, that's probably why I haven't had any opposition, because I make sure potholes are fixed. But so, you know, so we had so many things last year that last session that many of you, and I'm sure you're well read, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't interested in local government and what's going on countywide as well. But I'm sure, but some of you may not know that there was infringement, or in fact, it was passed. Vacation rentals. You may not be aware of vacation rentals, the Airbnbs and what have you. But they are unrestricted in terms of frequency and in terms of duration that somebody can rent a home. So it could be next to your house. Cities cannot regulate it. So, you know, so that's one thing. Now, that was passed, but you got Amendment 1. We need to know more about that. We need to educate citizens about that, because it ain't a tax break, it's a tax shift. And we all know that because we have been studying it and looking at it. Tree trimming was something that they tried to regulate, how we cut trees in our cities. Now, what's wrong with that picture? Community CRAs. CRAs, very important. Most of you know about CRAs. Very important. Eliminate slum and blight. Trying to restrict it. Didn't pass, thank God. And municipal elections. Tried to tell cities when we should have elections. And who knows best about win elections, the best time to have elections than local government. So that's what it's all about. It's about educating our residents about why local self-government works and why it's something we ought to protect.
Thank you. And the county commission, as you mentioned, you want applause for that? Mayor Longworth can really get you riled up about a subject too, which is why he's in the position he's in.
That's
But
why he
the
was elected
chair of the Florida League of
president
Cities,
of the
absolutely.
Florida League of Cities.
The county commission took a very strong stance about home rule last year, and I did want to ask Chairman Dantzler to address kind of your side of the home rule discussion as well.
Well, what Mayor Longworth said is ditto. You were very articulate in explaining the position. The county commission adopted a very aggressive stance against our legislative delegation and the legislature in general. We kind of classify what the speaker that the last 2 years was an all-out assault on our rights to govern ourselves. And when you talk about we got to get permission to trim a tree or do whatever, he's not making that up. And the homestead exemption extension that'll be on the ballot, they put this on the ballot. Not one of our legislative delegation, other than Representative Killebrew, even talked to us about it. And you know, to me, it's no real act of courage to cut someone else's taxes. You know, I've got to fund a sheriff, I've got to fund a fire rescue, I've got to fix these potholes, I've got to do these things as local government. And, you know, to me, if they wanted to cut taxes, they should cut their own rather than ours. So that was a big pet peeve of ours. We probably were the most aggressive county commission going after the legislative delegation. We heard that from the Florida Association of Counties. So I do applaud my commission and our leadership for doing that. But it is true, there's not a one-size-fits-all. What works for the Keys doesn't work for Polk County, doesn't work for Dundee, doesn't work for Titusville. And I don't know how this incoming speaker is going to be. I think he may be a little softer in his approach, but I think they may very well be just as aggressive. So we've got to talk to our legislative delegation and fight this wherever we can, because like Mayor Longworth said, is we know what's best for our local community. We're all political subdivisions of the state. We exist because the state says you can. I mean, I get that, that's fine. But a lot of times what I've noticed is, hey, we don't like what's going on in Palm Beach, or you pick a county and we can't change our county commission, so let's take it to the state and we'll get the state to make them change. Well, they can't make the change just for Palm Beach or Polk County. They've got to change the rules for the entire state. And that's why we as constituents, we need to be paying attention to these things and talking to our legislative delegation, because that's who we have access to. We don't really have access as individuals to the Speaker or the President of the Senate, but we do run into our representatives at different political functions, at different civic functions, at Publix, at the ball field, at church. That's where we need to be talking civilly and really trying to press our opinion on, let us have more control of ourselves. And, you know, if we want to ban plastic bags in Polk County, let us do it. If they want to ban paper bags in Jacksonville and Duval, let them do it. But that's where we need to stand up and take a stance and really make our opinion count. I've heard from some of the smaller cities, not necessarily in Polk, but others throughout the state, is the homestead exemptions, it doesn't really affect us. Well, it's the camel's nose that's going under the tent. Once they start taking more and more powers away from us and centralizing them in Tallahassee, the next one comes along, and the next one comes along, and this one may not be as effective or may not hurt you as much, but it'll hurt someone else, but the next one may come along that may really affect the smaller cities or may really affect the larger cities. So I appreciate the League of Cities taking the stance and your leadership on this, and we have a policy committee meeting for the Florida Association of Counties, I think is at the end of this month, commissioners, and you know, that's where we go down and talk about our legislative delegation. And I think we've got 4 of the 5, if not 5 of the 5 of us going down there, and we're going to try and make that pitch, is quit trying to take more control away from us. if we want to run our county or our city in the ground, that's, hopefully that doesn't happen, but that's what our local constituents ask for.
Mayor LaCosta?
On that point, we heard before, Brad Dantzler had said we should take more time and go to Tallahassee and try to explain our position, and on this issue would be a perfect one to let them know how we feel about this and really speak to them. And yet a little while ago, I know that we were almost turning our back on Tallahassee by delegations were going up and not seeing anybody, or we weren't going up at all. So my father used to always say, Joe, if you want to get something done on one particular topic, you have one shot at brilliance. Don't screw it up. Put everything together that you have to put together. Make sure you do it right. Be together on the subject and present a cohesive plan. Let the legislature in Tallahassee know why we are concerned. It may sound academic and it may sound naive, but sometimes you just have to go up and explain something in a rational way and saying, listen, we don't like what you're doing. This is the reason we don't like what you're doing. At the same time, we're getting more and more divisive in politics, and I certainly don't want to become like the federal government. I mean, you can't get anything done because people are not explaining their differences or don't wish to explain their differences and try to speak from the heart, tell them how you feel, and you can get a lot more done. So I think we have to present a cohesive front and do this together, and let's stop going to Tallahassee and turning our backs on them. That's not the way to get it done.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Mayor.
And it's not going to stop this year or next year. It's something that we have to do continually and just keep at it, because they're going to fight us as long as they can, and we have to come together as a group and keep going to Tallahassee and telling them that we're unhappy.
So no, I was just going to say just one last thing here, and the thing is that we are local elected officials, and our role is to protect our citizens and protect our residents and to make decisions that are best for them. So if we have state legislators who don't agree and who are not aligned with the same kinds of philosophies, then you know what we need to do?
Yep.
Put them out. Go to the poll and vote them out, and get somebody in who is going to care about our counties and our cities, and that's what's important. Chair Dantzler said that, and he is right on the money, that none of our local delegation voted in favor of home rule last session.
Mr. Killebrew did. Mr. Killebrew did.
Other than Representative Killebrew, he sure did. I met with him. We met with him. He sure did. I apologize for that. But the rest of them did not. None of them at no time. And that's the kind of thing that we need to pay attention to, and to make sure, and educating our citizens is something I think that is the next layer. So there are about 25,000 elected officials, 2,500 elected officials in the state of Florida, and there are 20 million voters. If we just get 1% of them, that's 200,000 people that will be talking as well as we are, will be speaking with the legislators. So you got 200,000 more people, and that's why it's so important that we work to educate our citizens.
Thank you. To change the subject just a little bit, Polk County in the Lakeland-Winter Haven Metropolitan Statistical Area, which is Polk County's borders, is often cited as one of the fastest growing. I think last year it was the 11th fastest growing community in the nation, which includes all of us. And so growth is happening. The state of Florida statistically has about an average of 1,000 people that move to Florida every day, which is wonderful in many ways, but presents its challenges. And growth is one of those challenges, both an opportunity and a challenge. And so the next question I want to pose is, how your community is handling that growth. And I think I'm going to pitch this down to Mayor Poskapel first in terms of growth, being that your community is on one of our major corridors. And it certainly has had some lively debates about growth, whether that be in business growth or residential growth. So I want to have you start with it, and then we'll get input from the rest of the table. But if you can start talking about how Auburndale's handling growth, projected growth, and planning for the future growth.
Sometimes when you see a lot of homes come up, everybody says, geez, how did that happen? That just didn't happen. That's been being planned for months, possibly even years. A lot of that has to do with a great collaboration within city administration, within management, within the community development director. Looking at your capacity, looking smartly at your transportation, looking smartly at your infrastructure. Sure, we'd love to build 1,000 homes and you don't have enough water supported. It's not going to work. It takes working together, really long planning. We had an issue last year about a warehouse, and that property had actually been planned as like an industrial area better than 25 years ago. There'd been a lot of research, a lot of planning before the first shovel was stuck into the ground. And I just believe that you've got to spend your time, you've got to spend your due diligence to successfully manage your growth. I hope that answers your question.
Mayor Lake, did you have a comment to add?
Yeah, everybody's facing some kind of growth problem. Not really a problem, but growth becomes a problem when you have to face the transportation issues, water issues, how you get around, how you do things, having places to buy stuff. Little old Lake Alfred is facing a little growth problem. We have houses going in. It's areas that were planned to be developed some time ago are now being developed. We handle it and try to control how we do it. Our biggest problem, however, is the growth from Auburndale and Haines City of everybody coming through Lake Alfred. And we have now got not a growth problem, but a traffic problem. So,
and a Dunkin' Donuts, though. No,
what's that?
And a Dunkin' Donuts.
And the Dunkin'. See, I'm kind of hoping that when we get these stores in the middle of town there, that will slow the traffic down, maybe get the cars to stop. I always hate when somebody tells me, oh yeah, I went through Lake Alfred. And I said, but did you stop? Well, nobody stops. They just go through Lake Alfred. So again, I've been pushing to get a traffic light, slow traffic down, because our citizens do complain about the growth in the city. They want growth, but they don't want growth. They like to have it, but they don't like the traffic. They don't like the problems. So we're trying to manage how we do that. We have a good city manager who does a good job with that. Ryan, we keep him around because he does do a good job. So,
Very good.
but yeah, growth is a benefit, a blessing, but a problem in many ways.
Thank you. Mayor LaCascia, and then
Well,
Mayor
I understand you called on Tim Pospakal because his city starts with A. I can appreciate that, but I think you should have started the question with Polk City, because for the people who don't know in the audience, Polk City is the fastest growing city in the state of Florida and the 5th fastest growing city in the entire county of Polk. Okay, that's recently been publicized. So we are dealing, the question was, how are you dealing with the growth? Because we have an incredibly intelligent and experienced city manager, I can explain that to you, and that's Patricia Jackson. She's in the audience. She's been, actually 10 years with Polk City is coming up, and she's been in Polk County for more than 30 years. So it's not the first, this is not her first rodeo. We have over 650 homes that will be coming to Polk City within probably the next couple of years. And they're situated in one particular area in the city, which creates a little bit more of a problem than if it was scattered maybe a little bit more intelligently or properly, but we don't have control over that. All we can deal is the freight train is coming, and what can we do about it? What she has put into place is to simply be proactive. We know what's coming, so let's not wait for it to come. Let's work with increasing, right now, she's increasing the utility department to make sure that we can take care of the infrastructure that they're going to need so we can service them properly. So it's a matter of experience management, getting out ahead of the problem and not waiting for it to happen. And that's based in all of the different divisions in the city. And I think Polk City is doing an excellent job of that. Thanks again to the leadership from our city manager. That's how we're doing it.
Thank you. Mayor Wagner?
Yeah, Lake Hamilton is ready for growth. We are updating our infrastructure as we go, and as you know, we're very small, and I'm hearing 500 homes, 600 homes. Well, we just finished one phase of 30 homes, and we just opened across, and we already have the other 30 homes coming in, which to Lake Hamilton is quite a growth for us. And we have a lot of vacant lots in the Groves for sale on 27 and Dundee, and it took myself and my planner 9 years to go with Dundee. Finally, we got together, and we did put sewer up 27. We broke ground in 17, and we put our first hookups this spring. So we are working towards it, but like I said, we're small, but we're ready. Come on.
Well, and it's all relative. The issues are the same, whether it's 30 homes or whether it's 500 homes. It's all relative of what you're having to deal with in your elected body.
Ready for it.
Mayor Mutz?
It is relative, and I think we have to consider the fact that our growth rate is extraordinary, both in our state as well as in our county, because we have to also consider the many facets of that. I was just making a quick list as you asked that question, and I can tell you on the areas that I know we're working on economic growth, not with respect to boredom, but these are just each of the things we're having to think about. Parking, certainly is more permanent parking, particularly in the dense areas, as well as valet parking. Our driving corridors, where are our next north-south corridors, where are our next east-west corridors, so that we know we're expanding them in the right place, because those are a decade out. Our public spaces, making our public spaces more fun to come down to, having cool attractions in them, certainly being a smart city, because we aren't going to grow if we aren't a city that can handle the expanded amount of broadband that's going to be required for people just to do their homes. Public transportation, it has to be multimodal. Citrus Connection has to remain an important priority to us as a county in between our cities, and we have to be supporting that together, and we need to think about how we're broadening that kind of commitment, not minimizing that and making it a cost consideration, but rather a quality of life consideration with respect to how are people going to connect and in hours that they need to live and connect in them. And even in that regard, thinking about use of Uber on off-hour times for some citizens and that kind of thing. Ease of access. It's important for our people to be able to get to areas easily and to have them be able to have inclusiveness in terms of some of the disabilities that may exist. These are all priorities that are going to become base expectations for us as communities. Our parks and recs have to grow to be able to have play places. We need to make decisions on density. How can we bring density into the right areas and recapture second-story spaces and abandoned places and lots that are not developed and do them in the right perspective so that it doesn't encroach into good neighborhoods that haven't had that kind of density in them, but that we're growing our opportunities and not turning our backs on those incentives that we have to have and code enforcement that goes along with that. And then we have the whole humanitarian side of this issue in economic growth, which is expanded affordable housing that we must move up, and we're on plan for about 749 expanded affordable houses in the next 4 years. That's a lot of impetus for us as a city. And what do we do with homelessness in a responsible way? Where do we move in to help people transition from what we can kind of look at and say, that's a problem forever. No, what do we really do to help that problem become people that find stability, that are able to then be able to utilize their lives? That's the short list of kinds of things we've just got to have be part and parcel of what we're doing if we're going to be comprehensive in how we're going to grow. And we can't segment some convenient pieces, next pieces out on this. They have to be things we're working together on cohesively in a plan, because it is a decade before we see a lot of this stuff happen. And we cannot watch for a decade and then do. We must plan in advance and vision and forecast and implement what needs to be done if we're going to be a county that is considered progressive in its ability to be a desirable place to live on a long-term basis. Realtor.com magazine just yesterday reported that, we're one of the most affordable cities in the country in market areas in terms of expanded bank liberalness for mortgages. And so that's a good thing for us. That's because we have space. That's because we have some of that economic pressure on socioeconomically that exists there. What are we going to do to capitalize on that so that we can be a place that is not only accommodating life as usual, but really becomes a desirable and more attractive place to come and not fight the economic growth, but embrace it and ride the wave of it?
Mm-hmm. And there is a lot to unpack on this question. There's a couple things that I pull out, but I do want to give Mayor Hatch an opportunity to answer. And then, Todd, did you want to say something on this one?
If you want to move on, that's fine.
Okay, but I know Mayor West does as well. So we'll go to Mayor Hatch and then Mayor West.
Thank you. I just want to say my commission has been very proactive in getting all their ducks in a row as far as water and sewer and all that, and to enable the growth that they saw coming. And right now there's a couple subdivisions coming, but one in particular has started already, and the first phase of it's over 100 homes, and it's going to be 600 homes total. And we're excited about that. And we need, I think, even as a whole group, some way to communicate, to the world that taxes and insurance in Polk County are a lot less than they are in our neighboring counties of Hillsborough and Orange. And it's cheaper to live here. And if you want to go to the beach, it's only, a 30-minute drive to the beach to the west. So, come live in Polk County, and then you can live for a lot less than you can if you go to those beach counties. And I enjoy the beach, but it's cheaper to live here. And it's just, my commission's done a good job on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mayor West?
Yeah, thank you. Quickly, Haines City was able to foresee and manage the growth, two things, by hiring probably the smartest city manager in Polk County, which is Derek Fietcher. And secondly, because of the prior city managers, we actually put our infrastructure in place because we've actually seen a vision. Haines City has a vision, and we knew that the growth was coming, so we placed the infrastructure in place years ago to accommodate the growth that we foreseen coming. And we also work closely with our neighboring cities, especially Davenport, which is closer to us, and we have a lot of property that is in relation with Davenport. So we established a mutual aid with Davenport, a mutual aid meaning that, there's a fire issue that if we can respond faster, Davenport can respond faster, that we put those in place because the growth was coming that direction. So we're working closely, and we have a great working relationship with the town of Davenport. And the last thing is actually by working with all of our partners, our chamber, our EDC, the developers, and our staff, because we created a strategic plan for the present and for the future. Now the growth has caused us concerns is that when the growth came upon us, that we experienced a lot of problems, like both of our high schools are at capacity because of the growth. And that causes us concerns. So we are currently working with the Polk County School Board to accommodate the growth of the homes that's coming into the city because of the high schools. And lastly, and of course, transportation, it caused an impact on the roadways and transportation. So we're currently working with, DOT and Highway 27 to consider taking care of all of our concerns with our transportation issue. So we are well ahead of the growth, and we are prepared to handle the growth. So I thank you for that question, and I think Haines City is ready.
There are two or a couple items through that that actually relate to questions that came from the audience. So I want to touch on one. Of course, everyone knows there's a separate elected body for our school system, the Polk County School Board. But to the everyday citizen, when they're coming into your commission, they're talking to you because you're in charge of the city, and that's their perception. And even last night at the Winter Haven City Commission meeting, there was someone that got up and was talking about how can we support and help our school system and our educational opportunities. One of the questions from the audience was when it comes to growth, and as we have these wonderful opportunities for improved housing and things of that nature that come to your communities, how can we work with the public school system, particularly in Northeast Polk County, to ensure that we are approving things and that we are doing things that are smart for the growth of our community when it comes to the impacts on our public education system as well. And just if there's one or two of you that have some suggestion, and I know Mayor West, you mentioned that you're already working with the Polk County Public Schools. So if you want to start with what you're doing to work with them. Of course, maybe explain a little bit about concurrency and how that works, but how are you proactive when it comes to that?
And thank you for that question as well. We're proactive by having a community forum that's coming up, I think sometime next month, with our school board members to talk to them about our concern with the school system and the growth that we have, and that we feel like at some point in time there needs to be another high school somewhere in the city of Haines City or either outside the city of Haines City, because we can't stop the growth. And the growth is going to come, whether it's coming in our city limits or outside our city limits, outside the county, But we're working closely with them, and we're having a forum to address all of these concerns. And I want to say October, don't know the exact date, but there is a date in October that we're working with the school board to try to curtail some of our growth problems, and that's what we're doing to be proactive.
I think we have to embrace the growth that we are feeling, and with respect to the school system, celebrate the accomplishments. We have a school system that didn't have an F school in Polk County this year. We had a school system that it was B rated, and we're making positive changes. We've got one of the finest academy systems in the country in our school system, and we have people in those academies that are starting to get vision for life at a much younger age than has been done earlier. So we have a lot of positive things to celebrate about our Polk County School Board and system. As cities, I think we can do a better, and I look at the menagerie, by the way, of working with the Department of Education and the constraints that they have and the budget issues that take place and the fact that they're squeezed in so many areas. I think as cities, we can be more supportive for them. In other words, there can be some yeoman's work we're doing, and really Winter Haven's done a great job in creating at least a committee that works well with them, because we should be feeding the school system some of the things that we think we need, and they should be able to tell us and say and delegate, why don't you work on getting these initiatives done, because they cannot do it all. Their pressures and their time constraints are too great. So certainly within Lakeland, we're modeling a little bit what we want to start to do and take a look at with respect to being a better advocate for them in terms of how we can work alongside them in our schools.
And I think that's a big point when it comes to silos. I think for too long, many of us have been working in our silos and what our different areas are, and we're starting to understand how it all fits together. And we've understood it, but how we can work together to make that happen. And in Winter Haven, it's really the community, the constituents that came forward and said, we're gonna make this happen, but we have the support of the city to help us with that advocacy. And with working, I see Kristen Hathcock in the audience with the workforce development at Polk County Public Schools. And we all know that workforce is one of our biggest challenges, and making sure that we are filling that skills gap, but that we're finding our residents of today the jobs that they need, as well as our students of tomorrow. And so if you don't know Kristen, raising her hand, and you want to find out how to get involved in workforce development, that's my commercial for you. So, but it is so important what they're doing. We are very proud as a chamber to work with them on the Construction Academy at Lake Region, but many other academies throughout the community. So thank you for that, and thank you, Mayor Mutz, for pointing that out. Mayor LaCoste, I think you were next.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that you have to have is a good school superintendent, and we're fortunate to have Jackie Bird, who has come aboard just a few years ago. I spoke with her at a Tiger Bay meeting 2 or 3 months ago, and she was aware that the city of Polk City had grown so quickly and is in the process of growing. And we had a discussion about the schools. She's acutely aware of all of the city's growth, bringing rooftops to our various cities. And she, again, is being very proactive in talking about how the school board is going to handle it in terms of schools and making sure that we have the infrastructure, the proper infrastructure within the county. So that's one of the, that's the good news, that we have a very fine functioning school district and led by Jackie Bird. So that's one of the first things we needed.
Thank you. Mayor Longworth, you had a comment?
Yes, and thank you. I was just going to add that there have been times, and I think in listening to this dialogue, it's something that we probably need to push or do even better. We've had school board representatives, representatives from the district office to come to our meetings and give reports on what the issues are and how we can help. And we haven't done that. Just thinking on the dialogue, listening to the dialogue, we haven't done that, and that's something we need to get back into doing, to have them to visit us and give the reports. The other thing is Bartow Senior High School. Of course, as it's already been said, we all have great schools in our cities. There's no doubt about it. The Polk County School District is just excellent, exceptional, because of the leadership and the teachers and all of the workers. But we coordinate. They're having major renovations, and we coordinated with very, very closely with Bartow Senior High School in the renovation efforts that they're going through now. So that was very helpful. And then the other thing is as really an elected official, not so much elected official, but as a community person, we meet with the principal about once a month. Sit down and talk. Just have and this is not the city of Bartow necessarily, but it helps me as an elected official because I can come back and hear the concerns and come back and report to the commission. But it's just something that we do in the community. We have a community group that just 3 or 4 of us, and we go in and meet with the principal. And it's very, very encouraging because it helps us. Our students need the help too. We got a lot of students who are at risk, a lot of students who just need help. They don't have parents. The school is the parent. So those are the kind of things that we hear about, and we can do some mentorship, do some things to help them to move along successfully through the school system. So I'm certainly going to, in listening, employ some of the things that I've heard.
And that's the whole point of today. So thank you for tying that together. This is a very passionate subject. I saw a lot of green cards get pulled around. Mayor Pennant, did you want to add a comment?
Yes, I think the growth that is occurring all over this county and all over the state, it had caught some businesses and some agencies off guard. And I think as for maybe the school board and maybe the county and so on, I think when municipality have like future development plans, I think it would be helpful if that future development plans is shared with the county, shared with the school board, shared with maybe other businesses and other agencies, so it is known ahead of time. So if there are things that they need to do to gear up and get ready, at least they'll have the heads up maybe a few years ahead of time, or even months ahead of time, because I think everybody wants to be positive players, but when these take you sometime off guard, you just can't deliver the services and the goods that you would like to because of the time constraint. So I think that's something that maybe we should consider of sharing our future development plans more openly. So other agency, the county, the school board, the sheriff, everybody can be abreast of it so that we can be better prepared.
Absolutely. And as many of you know in the audience as well as around the table, this November there is a question on the ballot about the renewal of a half-cent sales tax for our Polk County Public Schools, a renewal of an existing tax that is being sunset. So basically something we voted on, I believe it was in 2003. Are your communities, and I don't even know if you're allowed to, but are your communities taking a stance on that or helping to inform the public on that? And this can just be a show of hands if you've had any conversations in your elected bodies about that. No? Mayor Hatch?
May I speak to that? I'm a former educator. This is not a new tax. This is something we have been paying for all along. Nobody likes to pay tax. I understand that. I don't. But this is not a new tax. It's just a continuation of something that's already in place. It was done X number of years ago, and it was set to sunset this year. So I guess my question is, would you rather, think of it this way. We're talking about building new schools in Haines City. Would you rather everyone that spends $1 in Polk County help pay for a new school? Or would you rather just the property owners to help pay for that new school? I mean, because if they don't get it through the half-cent sales tax, my logic tells me that the school board's going to raise their ad valorem taxes. I mean, this is not a new tax. That's all I can say. And I would urge you to recommend that people vote for this extension.
And I could be wrong, but I think there's actually a statute that prevents the school district or caps the school district on what they can actually raise their ad valorem. So there would essentially be a gap regardless, because they don't have the authority to necessarily do that to the extent to cover that. Yes, one quick comment, Joe.
If you recall, not too long ago, we tried that for the transportation initiative. It was a penny. It was matter of fact, it was $1, 1 penny on every dollar. They raised the sales tax by 1 cent. It failed by a great number of voters, and that was just to get transportation moving again. And it was, because it's a sales tax, it was shared by everyone, including snowbirds, tourists, everybody. Okay, it wasn't just on the backs of people who live in Polk County. As a matter of fact, there was a Brookings Institute. They reported 28% of Polk County population is at or below the poverty level, and the taxes, and 13 to 20% of the sales tax would be paid by people who are not living here. So it would be supplemented by not only Polk County residents, but the sales tax would be spread everyone who spends $1, and they were exempt. Well, that failed terribly with the transportation a couple of years ago. It's difficult to raise a sales tax. It comes down to education and advocacy, I understand that. But the transportation issue was, we tried like the Dickens to get that through, and it failed. So it's an uphill fight. It's a worthy fight and a noble fight. But by the same token, it's difficult to do.
Well, and it's certainly important that the public understands that this is a renewal of something that they are already paying as well. And you are right, though, this will be on a very lengthy ballot. I think it's actually one of the last items on a ballot that already will have potentially up to 11 state amendments on it. So whether anyone officially takes a position within their community, I think all of us in the room need to be having these conversations across the county to make sure that people understand. Our Chamber of Commerce has actually taken a resolution of support for the renewal because we think it is that important. Economic development does not happen if you don't have a strong school system. And even part of that is, what do your schools look like? How many portables are on the property? Can you build a new school? We need at least 2 in Southeast Winter Haven, Northeast Polk County, and I know the mayors of Davenport and the mayors of Haines City, that you all understand how important this is. So if you are out in the community, make sure that people know that this is something that they need to look for on their November ballot. One thing that I wanted, that several of you have mentioned in this discussion, is public transportation. And of those 1,100 people a day that are coming into Florida, many of them are older, which isn't surprising. They leave their higher tax states to come down and retire in our community for the weather and many of the other wonderful amenities that we can offer. And as Mayor LaCascia mentioned, we did have a transportation initiative that failed, which could have provided some funding to address that issue. What in your communities, and just hearing from a couple of you, are you able to do, either working with Citrus Connection or to address that public transportation or modes for people to get around? Mayor Wagner, you mentioned this kind of from the start as something that personally is very important to you. How about from Lake Hamilton's perspective?
Well, Lake Hamilton does not have any transportation, and I was on the advisory board many years ago with Tom Phillips, and I think from day one, it was like, get Lake Hamilton something to get us some transportation out of Lake Hamilton, get us some transportation, and it's not happened. And our community is aging, and it would be nice to have someone, something to come in to take us, you know. We don't have Uber where people can call, not much Uber in our area, but I think it's going to be vital for our growth to have transportation. And I remember one of the first meetings I was at, they said it'd be 2030, and I'm going, oh, I won't even probably be alive when that happens. But it needs to be done now. We need to get transportation in our communities, especially up the ridge from like Frostproof, Davenport. We have nothing at all.
Mayor Lake, and then Mayor West.
Yeah, the issue of transportation, public transportation, I'm on the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board. It's a mouthful. The whole goal of that is to supply transportation for those that are not able to get around, that cannot drive, elderly citizens, going to doctors. It's expensive to do it, and getting funds to keep it operating is difficult, but they're working on that. And every meeting I go to, we find out how much more it's costing to pick up passengers and take them any place. And it surprises me as what it costs. But if you want to ride a bus, you can, and you can buy a pass, and it's not that expensive. And so most people drive, but there are a lot of people who cannot drive. And the main thing is to have places where you could pick up a bus. We have 2 bus stations, I believe, in our city, 3 bus stations in our city. We work with Citrus Connection. We pay them to have buses come through Lake Alfred. But having affordable transportation is as important as having the transportation itself. And that's the main thing.
Mayor West?
Thank you. Quickly, I would like to add to and say this: it's imperative that we keep Citrus Connection as part of a municipality as a bus service for us, because if it wasn't for Citrus Connection at this point in time, we really would be in bad shape. So I think it's important that we keep Citrus Connection around. I often You know, the only concern that I have with our transportation issue in Haines City, and I often joke sometime at our city council meeting, say, you know, our bus locations are so far apart that you almost have to catch Uber to get to the bus to catch the Citrus Connection, you know? And it shouldn't be like that. I think that, you know, we need to work closely with the Citrus Connection, and we also have links that comes out of the Orlando district in Haines City, but we need to work closely with them. The reason why I say that, because we need to incorporate more bus routes that's more in the community. All our bus routes are in our business district. So if individual that wanted to get on a Citrus Connection bus to connect to Winter Haven or over to Lakeland, they have to walk 4 miles to get on a bus. And to me, that's asinine. I don't think that we have citizens that can't walk 4 miles to catch the bus. And I think that, and I don't know if other municipalities, and I entertain this question here, do you all have that same issue that they're in our commercial district, but not in our residential district? The question that I entertained to Tom Phillip was, you know, why can't we put a bus in our residential district, a smaller bus? And he said it's feasible, and I think that it's something we need to approach Citrus Connection to try to get the buses inside the residential. And that's the concern that we have with our transit with Citrus Connection. But it is imperative that we keep Citrus Connection, because if it wasn't for Citrus Connection, we'll really have some concerns. So, and thank you for that question. I think it's an excellent question.
Mayor Pennant and then Chairman Dancer.
Yeah, I personally want to applaud the effort of Mr. Phillips, Tom Phillips, and his staff. Notably, Ms. Killebrew, I think she's here. We have interaction with them on a regular basis, and it's refreshing to really speak to them. And we know the revolution that Mr. Phillips has created since his takeover, the Citrus Connection. I just want to say, many of us that are getting service, there are some that get more service than others because maybe they are bigger cities and maybe location and all of that. But I do think for us, especially with the initiative that didn't pass a few years ago, for us maybe to get more service from Citrus Connection, I think maybe they might have to go back and look at our contribution. And maybe some folks might not like the statement, but it could be if you want more, then maybe you have to pay more. And I think with the proper financing, with the proper revenue, they will be able to do more. So I think maybe there's a lot of stuff they need to look at, and in terms of revenue. And then maybe they might have to come back to us. Maybe they might have to redo the whole thing and see how much more maybe we can pay to afford us a little bit more service. Because in City of Service, we have service, we call it limited service here in Dundee. But we are just a few miles apart and right in the middle. Lake Hamilton has nothing. I mean, how do we explain that? But like I say, they're really accommodating, and I think we can speak to them. And I think we'll be able to resolve in the next year or so, resolve a lot of our transportation issues.
Very good. Chairman Dancer?
Well, you get the bus system that you pay for. And I want to thank the cities that are here for stepping up and agreeing to get to your fair share. It may not happen overnight, but it was unfair for the county to pick up the ridership cost for the entire county, even inside municipalities. Tom Phillips, the director of Citrus Connection, is over here along with Aaron Killebrew. And a couple years ago, that's when they said we need the cities to step up and pay their fair share. And if you want more bus service, like Mayor Pennant said, you can pay for more bus service. And I think that every time I've been around the representatives from Citrus Connection, their leadership, they're always looking to say where are routes better served. And Mayor Lacascio, you had mentioned the tax that failed a couple years ago. Well, it was for transportation and transit. And in my opinion, transit killed the deal. because people here aren't used to riding a bus. They're used to getting in their car and driving. The folks that come from New York and larger cities where they've got a very urban route, they're used to buses making a regular loop, and we're not used to that. So I think that was a tough nut for locals to take on. But again, I want to thank the mayors here for the leadership of saying that our city needs to be paying their share of bus service that services your citizens. And again, I think they would love to have additional funding and to pay for additional stops. They squeeze more out of a lemon than I've ever seen anyone squeeze. They do a fantastic job, and they're always looking to, they spend an inordinate amount of time trying to work with local government to do what they need. And Mayor West, I think you talked about Lynx also was coming into Polk County. Sunrail may be here at some point. So I think it's being addressed. There will never be a bus stop on every corner like some people want. It's just not going to happen if you do move to New York or Chicago, where they do have that type of service. So I applaud Citrus Connection for what they do. I applaud the people in the TPO for the leadership that they provide and saying, hey, these are where our deficiencies are. So again, if you want more stops, feel free to pay for more stops.
One thing that we've been talking about really is infrastructure and utility and things that people expect in a community. And one thing that Mayor Dantzler alluded to earlier was broadband and the importance of connecting that digital divide. The Mayor Frostproof, who couldn't be here today, that was one of his biggest points, was Frostproof doesn't have easy access to broadband or high-speed internet. I know we get a lot of people at the Winter Haven Public Library coming in from Frostproof to utilize the high-speed internet that our city has committed. In front of each of you, I just want to point out, you do have a resolution that your community may or may not have passed. At this point, this is a resolution from the Smart Communities alignment team here at Polk Vision. We would certainly hope that you consider this in your local bodies. It's important, again, from a collaboration perspective, that we are all connected. And the connection of the future is through high-speed internet and having that from both an economic development perspective and education perspective. Just from time's sake, if I could have just the two mayors, Mayor Dantzler and Mayor Mutz, talk about why your cities have taken this and run with it. So we'll start with Mayor Dantzler and then to Mayor Mutz.
Well, in terms of the smart community, I was going to make just one quick comment about technology, and it ties into this. A lot of these problems we're talking about, transportation and water and a lot of stuff. A lot of these problems, in my opinion, are temporary. Imagine over the next 10 or 15 years when driverless cars and Uber and things like that really become a reality. I've had this conversation with Mayor Mutz about building parking garages, because just think about it, ultimately at some point the technology is going to be there, and we're going to be able to get on our cell phone and have a car come to our house and bring us to work and then pick us up and take us home. And instead of my family that has 5 cars, we've got 3 kids plus me and my wife, instead of having 5 cars, maybe we only have 2 cars because we can use a driverless car to take us around. A lot of that is technology oriented, and it's the same way with this high-speed internet. Winter Haven has had this dig once policy for over 10 years, and we've laid a lot of dark fiber around town, and it's now starting to pay off. We have companies coming in and renting space, just no different than having a sewer line or a water line down. They're now tying into our dark fiber, and we're collecting close to $200,000 a year in rental fees, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have our technology team in Winter Haven is estimating that we're going to be collecting anywhere from upwards of $2 million a year when our dark fiber starts being lit up, is the term they use. When it means when people start using it, and that's just what we have in downtown. As we expand out and as we connect with Lakeland, which is something that that's low-hanging fruit to connect down 542, and then we can pull in here with Polk and with the school system and with the sheriff's office, and then we can start going to other cities. If we can build this big loop in Polk County, we're now going to have high-tech companies coming here. They're going to bring higher-paying jobs. And it's not pie in the sky. It's something that works. We've seen it in Winter Haven. We have a lot of, all you got to do is go to one of our local bars, go to Grove Roots or someplace like that, and you walk in there. You got all these high-tech people walking in. You don't know them. They're young. You can tell they're brilliant and smart. And they're there because they have a job that demands high-speed internet. And so I'm just seeing it as I go around town. I'm seeing these people show up that are these real technical, smart people that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And it started, we talked about planning. Mayor Possible talked about all good stuff starts with a plan. Well, this was a plan we had 10, 15 years ago, and it's now starting to pay off. So I think it's something, this is a real easy thing, doesn't cost anything to pass this. Just raise the awareness of there is an internet deficit in some parts of the county. We need to work together to alleviate that. And use Winter Haven as an example because it's working for us now, and I know Lakeland's much bigger than we are, and it's working for them, but it's not hard. You just have to start planning and doing it. So,
Anything to add to that, Mayor Moore?
Agree 100%. We have water, we have sewers, and we will have broadband. This is no different infrastructure than septic tanks to sewers. We're going from what we have as an internet structure today in most of our residential homes and many of our businesses with septic tanks to sewers and sewer lines. And so our broadband is the next sort of, this is an option. And my grandchildren are not likely to ever have a driver's license, period. They won't need to, and they'd wonder why we put our hands on some silly round disk for hours to get places when you could have been texting your friends. So that's not the driver in this, but the reality is those cars require the broadband. The cameras that we're going to have increasingly require broadband. We don't have an option here. This is how do we do it the most affordable way possible, as quickly as possible to become the cities we must become.
Barely.
You kind of know I'm a techie geek anyway, so internet and broadband is very important. We are looking at that now as how we can expand. We're looking at hiring an IT person now to help us get our Wi-Fi working better. Right now, the public library is a hot spot for people that want to use the internet. It would be nice if we had it in other areas within the city, but we don't have the black lines under the ground that a lot of cities are doing. I don't think we intend to do that, do we, Ryan? Yeah, we look at that too as being something we need to look at. That's a future thing. Right now, that's not the number one item on our list, but it's in the list. So we're working on it.
Mayor Longworth, did you have something?
Yeah. So this is an issue that someone mentioned about working together. Just an issue we can work together on.
Yeah. You bet.
Yeah. This is an issue we can. This is an issue where collaboration among the cities would really, really help. And I'm making note of that. So now, because all of us seem like we're touching it. We are either there or we are touching it. We are trying to get there. And so just to tell you, Bartow, we have budgeted $2.5 million for smart metering, fiber smart metering, and we're going to go. That's just a pilot project, about 1,300 homes or residences that we are going to target for the smart metering. Now, after that, of course, it is to do fiber optics to every house. I mean, go to the home, put in all the infrastructure for Bartow. It's like a $28 million project. So it's like, where do we get the money from? But that's something that we'll have to, we are investigating. But we felt that the pilot would be better first so we can work out any bugs that we may have. So that is to be implemented October 1st or sometimes during the next fiscal year. And that would be important. And the other thing, and the next step will be broadband. Because I don't know about you all, but we got a cable company in Bartow that everyone hates. The service. I'm not going to call the name, but they are terrible for service. So people, if we brought broadband to everyone right now today, tomorrow, everybody have it. They would go for it, you know. So it's in demand. It's there. People are waiting, but it just takes time and it takes money. And the only other thing I want to say is one of the things that we want to stress is ensuring that we get broadband to the underserved neighborhoods.
Absolutely. So we've so much to unpack, obviously, today. I have a couple, two other questions and then closing comments. Mayor West, you had mentioned affordable housing as being a area that you are focusing on in Haines City. Could you, one, define what you define as affordable housing, which was a question from the audience, and two, talk about kind of how you are working on that?
Thank you once again. Affordable is affordable. And what I mean by that is based on income. You know, what's affordable to me may not be affordable to someone else. Affordable homes wouldn't be a home that is a $250,000 home if an individual is only making $30,000, $40,000 a year.
Right.
So we have to look at affordable home that a person can afford based on income. And the way we're working on that in the city of Haines City, that we're partnering with a local nonprofit and some other entities out there to come in to help them on first-time home buyers based on income. And we are actually providing the land space to build these homes on. City has just turned over some property to a local nonprofit, and they're working together with another entity to put these homes on these lots that has been abandoned. So the city turned over the lots to the nonprofit. Nonprofit is working with an entity that provides local assistance, and we are now doing twofold. We're getting those blighted areas off and those lots that's abandoned all completed. So it's a process, and like they said earlier, everything starts with planning, and we are in the planning stage working on that.
And kind of along that same vein, a lot of the communities right now are grappling with the issue of homelessness in their communities. And this kind of goes back to Mayor Mutt's comment at the beginning, is remembering that while there's so much logistics that we deal with on a daily basis in your elected roles, there's also a humanity side. They're humans. Every one of our citizens are humans. And we really have to address some of those issues. So I know that Lakeland is starting an initiative, and I wanted to give Mayor Mutz an opportunity to speak. One, what you've learned from your travels about affordable housing, but then also how you're translating that, how Lakeland is moving forward to tackle this issue, and what we all might be able to learn from that.
Well, it's least as important as gopher turtles. The homelessness issue has to be considered. And this is a crisis issue across the county. It's a crisis issue across the country. And it is because we probably haven't done everything as comprehensively as we could. I have had an opportunity to serve on boards that addressed homeless issues for over 20 years, but beyond that, a much deeper dive since becoming mayor on this issue in terms of what has worked in cities and what we ought to have be our next step. Now, I was able to do that on the heels of a homeless study that our former city commission had engaged a year earlier, and then be able to look at their report and put together a homeless initiative steering committee within Lakeland that would then be representatives of all different sectors of the city. Some people who don't want to deal with homelessness at all and just want it gone. Some people, you know, may be a little less, maybe more typical. And then came to 25 suggestions that they made that out of our homelessness report that we then voted on 4 unanimously to implement in the first year. I have failed so far in my ability to move the commissioners to want to expend that $195,000 in this effort. I've not given up yet because our budget finalization is until September 20th, and that's an eternity from now in terms of the opportunity to continue to try and render some level of influence. But to me, zoomed out, these are not, what we can tend to do is hit the myths. The myths are that homelessness, if you fix a problem for some group of people, just gets replaced with another busload of another group of people. That's not what happens. If you start to address homeless needs in your community, and what it isn't that 10 or 12 panhandlers or people in your public spaces that we're really talking about here. In Lakeland, it's the 600 people that are homeless, whose kids are trying, some of which are trying to go to school, and they're living out of cars, and they're living out of hotel rooms and motel rooms that they can rent at night, and moving and shifting all the time, who can't focus on education. Well, they're trying to figure out where they can find a pan to cook a dinner in night after night, and our disrupted lives. We have some percentage within all of our communities of just disrupted lives that the not-for-profits can't absorb any more of. They're already full. They already have waiting lists that we as a city are going to need to address. And so I have a great belief that if we would, for example, in Lakeland, take these 4 first initiatives, that we can turn around a year from now and look and say, did we have success like other cities have had in this regard in the reduction of numbers? Because there are point-in-time counts that occur in January and a lot of ability to come underneath this and be able to manage empirically that success. So our initial take and my recommendation to our commission, based on the Homeless Initiative Steering Committee's recommendation, and Lord Gwinnett's wonderful support in terms of understanding it on a Polk County basis, is that we first of all create 2 caseworkers full-time, probably could be reduced to 1, that really do the interviewing one-on-one of people within our scenario, our 600, to know what their work, what are their interests, what is the background, what happened to them, what could they do work-wise capability, what would solve some initial opportunities for them, and to align and connect people who can work. I've done this myself in Munn Park and connected people to work opportunities almost the next day by just being down there at 6 a.m. in the morning and finding out what people wanted to do to get connected. We have to do that. Some of those are continuing to be good long-term workers. Then the second step, so that's the 2 caseworkers. We'd probably move ourselves to 1 caseworker before the year was even over, because the load is now up front, and then you do this connection piece. The second is to have some rapid rehousing capacity right away, some funding for that. And that rapid rehousing pays a damage deposit or 2 months rent or something that allows that family to at least get in, get landed, or the individual, it could be an individual as well, get landed, be able to start to get their job, find a way to have transportation, and start to move. If we do those 2 things, the caseworkers and rapid rehousing, and we have to remember there's not 1 slot in homelessness as well. There are chronic homeless people who can't work a 40-hour-a-week job, maybe can work 8 or 16 hours in a week period of time. That's going to require permanent supportive housing, and we're looking at that separately. That's a completely different initiative, wouldn't be city-based. It would be a center area that we would create to be able to do that. And we have looked at Austin's model and Community First Village, which is commendable, and I have visited that to be able to see that. And those people are very happy in the community they live in and contribute at the levels that they can. That's permanent supportive housing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about rapid rehousing for people that if we got them into a place and they could land, can start to build some stability. So our goal would be 2 caseworkers, 25 slots for rapid rehousing, making certain work on Citrus Connection connected to people that can get to places for work. And then the last one is to hit the permanent supportive housing standards at the national model level, not to be quite as, a little more moderate, so that we are more severe in terms of the people we allow to have the benefits of permanent supportive housing. We do these things well, then at the very same time that we create opportunity, we can create more accountability in terms of the people that don't want to have those problems solved and really aren't looking for that, and we can handle them differently. This is going to need to be, we hope, I hope you will see that this will get integrated into our budget, and then I hope we can become a model that can look for this next year, what has happened in Lakeland in this regard in terms of success, and then can be some things another place like broadband, we can work together, maybe on the permanent supportive housing side well together. So that would be my thumbnail overview.
Mayor Danzler, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and I appreciate the last few comments that Bill said there. there is no single solution to homelessness. There's lots of solutions, and it's going to take a lot of different things. And I really appreciate what Lakeland's doing. As the largest city, they're taking the lead on this thing, and I encourage the commissioners in Lakeland to go forward with this because, number one, it's the right, good, honest, decent thing to do. And number two, a lot of communities are going to watch what they're doing, and we're going to hopefully read the studies that they do and the reports that they come up with and see the successes that they have and model that, because it's not, and you know, I'm always about low-hanging fruit whenever we're talking about stuff, and it works in this way too, because when I found out that there's about 450 homeless children in just Winter Haven that are in the public school system. These are kids that the public school system knows about that have no permanent address. They live in hotels and they go around. That's low-hanging fruit. We can help those people. And those are those are children that if we can somehow help them, they're going to get a good education and they're going to stop the cycle. They're going to help break the cycle. So that's low-hanging fruit. That's only 450 kids in Winter Haven that is homeless. So we got to do something, and I applaud Bill and Lakeland. It doesn't get a lot of, it's not a real sexy thing everybody wants to talk about. Some people don't want to talk about it at all. I get that. I mean, you're never going to cure the problem, but if we can go after the children and the ones that are, the kids that are in school, we already know who they are. The school system knows who they are. You know, I feel like we owe it to at least try. So I want to thank Bill and Lakeland for going forward, and I can't wait to see what they come back with, because Winter Haven's, it's on our agenda and we're trying. That's what I'm saying. So,
Thank you. In the essence of time, I'm going to go to closing statements. If you do have a comment about that, if you want to add that in. If you could just take a minute, just try to keep the comments succinct to kind of wrap up your thoughts about today. What is it that the one thing that you want the other mayors sitting around the table to know or to collaborate on, or whatever that might be? And the whole point of today is to share and to take things away. So if you could mention that one thing or those couple things that you want to take away from today or to work with other people on. And we're going to start with you, Mayor Poskett.
Your first question, Katie, was you asked what was the most important concern of each city. And each mayor had a different concern. So that right there tells you the value that not every city is the same. Right. And that home rule or local self-government is so much more important today than it's ever been. And it's under more attack than it's ever been today. But that is what I would suggest for the audience and for all the mayors. And I know we're thinking about it. We're all thinking about it, that we pass that along to the citizens and that we talk about that. And that's something that we guard very, very closely. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Mayor Longworth?
So, ditto on what Tim just said on educating the citizens on home rule. That's so important, on local self-government. And meet with chambers. You know, we met with the chamber, meet with community groups, meet with Rotary, meet with in Bartow, like the Cricket Club, meet with those clubs and those organizations and community-based organizations and friends and family and neighbors and students. Meet with them to educate them on what local self-government is all about. The League of Cities, and I'm sure you got your county association, but the League of Cities is putting out some information within the next 90 days on tidbits on how to get the information out and how to make it local in order for our message to be heard. So that's so important. I can just talk about that, and we will be talking about it. And the only other thing is we've talked about so much, and everything is important to every city. And like someone said, you can't paint a broad brush over everyone of every city. It has to be specific. But we can learn a lot maybe by, and I know we're busy, all of us are so busy, but we can learn a lot by getting back together sometimes, and meeting and talking about these issues. You're talking about homelessness and affordable housing and infrastructure and what we are doing. We can learn from each other, and that's always better for the citizens. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Mayor Robinson?
All you.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed being here. Going along with these two gentlemen, our homeroom is very, very important. And for you guys that don't know, we do have a Ridge League of Cities who are very involved in this. And in fact, I believe last month, the month before last, we had a joint meeting with invited almost all of the Chamber of Commerce to attend this meeting. It was very well attended, and we were trying to get the information out to educate our people. And one way the Ridge League did do that was having a joint meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, and we plan on continuing that and using other outlets also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pennant?
I'm gonna try to use this minute wisely, so I think I'm gonna make it more a little thank you session. I just want to say a big thank you for Polk Vision for continuing over the past 8 years of hosting us in this forum. I personally do hope that this will be an event that will continue, that 25 years down the road, we'll still be talking about the Mayor's Roundtable. I have benefited from this immensely. I think my town also does benefit. I remember, I think it was number 3, Roundtable number 3, I was here. And at that time, we weren't getting any transportation from Citrus Connection, and that was the first time I brought that awareness up, and not long thereafter, we get one-stop service. Now we are up to two or three, somewhere there, and it's getting a little bit better, and I do think is as a result of what the forum that Polk Vision has given us. Also, Mayor Longworth just left. I just want to also give him my appreciation for being at the helm of the Florida League of Cities, represents us here from Polk County. So I really appreciate him in his position. And I know we will support him from Dundee, and I think all of us here, sitting here representing our own municipality, will give him the support he needs to be the greatest president over the past how many years. Also, Mr. Danzler, you know, I think I personally gonna miss you here. We'll try to clone the next chair so that we don't feel like we lose you. And please
I'll
keep...
write questions for the board for next year.
Right, yeah. Please make sure you're in the audience. And just for us here, sitting up here on the rostrum, I think we have done well over the years to make sure we have our attendance here. And I hope we do continue to do so that Polk Vision can preserve this forum that really get us together. I know we meet almost every month, Ridge League of Cities, but as you know, that's a totally different forum. We eat food, and you know, we try to you know, get together, shake hands, and so on. But this is really productive. And let me say this: I'm not gonna take any underhanded shot like you guys take about your city manager or your town manager. I just want to thank my town manager and my vice mayor for being here today. And just to let you guys know, my town manager is shaping to be the greatest town manager for Polk County. So whosoever is the greatest, I'm just serving you that notice.
There you go. Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I'm
And
happy
thank
to
you
be
for
here.
acknowledging that Mayor Danzler is terming out as a county commissioner. And so we do all want to thank Chairman Danzler for his service on the commission. Mayor West?
Quickly, I'll just like to thank Polk Vision for the opportunity to have me at the table. This is my first term and first time here. Had a great time, very informative. A couple of things I want to say to my colleagues here is that we're running out of water. And I think that we need to continue to work with the Polk Water Cooperative, because individuals don't know that, you know, and one individual average household uses 131 gallons of water per day. That's very important to know. And I preach, and I hope other municipalities can look at maybe doing some reclaimed water, because even in the state of Florida, we are the national leader in reuse water. We use 719 million gallons of reclaimed water per day. So we need to encourage using reclaimed water and continue to work with our Polk Water Cooperative Board and be a partner with them, and be mindful also of November with the homestead exemption. We need to educate our communities that it's very important, because if that homestead exemption passes, that our budget, our operational budget, is going to take a big impact on a lot of these municipalities here in Polk County and beyond the state of Florida. So just make sure we educate our communities on that homestead exemptions, because sometimes it's not really good for the municipalities. Lastly, I would like to say that on Thursday night, the Ridge League of Cities are hosting their monthly meeting in Haines City, the best city on the Ridge, and we are having it there, and it's Motown. So we encourage you all to come out, and on September the 28th, we're having a concert under the stars. And one thing I like about this concert, that it's free. And we're encouraging all municipalities and all their constituents and citizens to be at our concert. And thank you for allowing me to be here today. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. A healthy competition. I love it. It's important for all of us. Mayor Lake.
I didn't know we were going to be broadcasting what we have coming up as events, but thank you for letting us know, Mars.
That was not an invitation to do that, Jeffrey.
No, I just think that this is the best thing we could do to get mayors together and have an open forum to discuss what all our issues are. And what you find out is mostly they're the same. And what we do is try to find ways to address them, solve them, work together to get things done. And although we're all separate cities, we are not competitors. We work together, and that's important. Ridge League of Cities is good because we do get all our members together there. We normally have a good speaker, good programs, and that keeps us together. The Florida League of Cities, of course, is the most important thing we have, because there you not only get Polk County, you get every county in Florida. And again, you find out that all the issues that you're facing are probably the same ones everybody else is facing. So try to find an answer, and that's what we try to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to recommend that we have Katie run for governor. She does a heck of a job.
Oh, thank you. Mayor Wagner?
Everybody said just about everything I was going to say, but you know, it doesn't matter the size of your city. We all have the same problems, just in different proportions. And the benefits of working together like we've done, and I think we've always done this really, really well, and we learn so much when we come here. But touching on home rule just for a second, we got to make people understand that if we lose home rule, we would not have the choice of fixing any of our own problems. We would be legislated, we would be directed from Tallahassee to do these. So people have to understand that home rule is very important if we want to keep our cities our cities.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Mutz.
Lakeland's address is Polk County, Florida. And so as each of our cities in Polk County sees opportunities and can win, we all win. And that's what we want to continue to support.
So true.
Mayor Hatch?
Thank you. I think I'm going to take away from this mainly today is the broadband. I'm interested in that. And then the other thing that I noticed that everybody here at the table is interested in is water. And I would encourage you to do this. Mulberry was the first city in the county to require new construction to have water-saving appliances in them. And it's some sort of designation, and I don't remember the name, like Water Star designation or something like that.
Energy Star.
Energy Star. Okay, I knew it had star in there somewhere. But I would encourage you to do this, and that will help save water because we won't need as much water in the future if our homes have these water-saving appliances in them. And with that, I'll shut up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you
Mayor
for doing this.
Thank you.
I think this is, I've been to just about every one of these mayors' roundtables over the years. I know that I come away with a better understanding of what all of the cities are doing with problems that are common to all of us. But Polk Vision really has to be complimented on, living up to their credo of lead, engage, align, and develop. I think it's the only organization in Polk County that continually strives to bring together all of the cities on relevant issues to what's going on throughout the entire county. So thank you for that Polk Vision. Todd Dantzler, thanks for representing commissioners and for your thoughts today. All of my fellow mayors, it's always fun being with all of you guys. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Dantzler?
Yes, good to be with all you guys today. Thank you. I always use this as an example. In my family alone, my brother Todd is a Republican, my brother Rick is a Democrat, and I'm an independent. And so we all have different opinions and we all have different views on things, but we all come together on Sundays at my mom's house and have lunch. No matter what our differences are, we're still brothers. And that's kind of the way it is with us. Auburndale's interest and Bartow's and Lake Alfred's and Winter Haven's and Lakeland's, we all have our own interests that we're interested in, but we're all united in a lot of different ways. So Winter Haven's experiencing a lot of growth, and it's because we've got some good public-private partnerships, and we're all sort of pulling in the same direction. We can do that as mayors, too, if we can all keep the lines of communication open, try to help each other when we can. Collaboration makes all the difference in the world. So I'm all about partnerships, and I think you guys are too. So good thing today.
Chairman Dantzler, you have the last word.
Some Sundays are better than others.
Some Sundays.
I've got a couple of comments, and first, I've got 2 months left in office, and it's been an honor and a privilege to represent each and every one of you. If you live in Polk County, I represent you. We have districts. We just have to live in the district, but we work and we are voted in at large. So it's been an honor. I would encourage the mayors to call each other up, take each other to lunch, take each other to breakfast. And you don't have to do it once a year in this forum, but it's a way to, one, better understand issues that each other's dealing with. They may have a solution that, hey, we've already done that. Have you tried it this way? And you're not reinventing the wheel. So for those that are up here, some of you I've laughed with, some of you I've cried with. One of you even stuck my toothbrush in the toilet when we were little kids. Yes, he was a terror. But I implore you to lobby and lobby hard for your local government. We kind of took a howitzer to the problem a year or two ago, and I think we will continue to do that. We may moderate a little bit, but you do have to fight for your local community because there is an assault on it. You've got to be strategic in your thinking and tactical in your actions. So you've got to figure out what's the best way to approach this. I like Leo's approach through the Florida Association of Cities. But please know that leadership runs the state and leadership runs the country, not the rank and files. You can chip away. Our legislators can say, yeah, I believe in what you're saying, but unless leadership tells me to do it, I can't buck the system. So that's what we're up against. I want to thank Polk Vision for hosting this. I do appreciate this. This is my second time participating, I think. Katie, you've done a wonderful job being the moderator. You got a bunch of type A personalities up here, and you've done quite a good job corralling us.
Thank you.
And last, some of you have said this is the first time you've ever been in this building. I would ask you to take a tour of the building. Well, I don't know whether they've got them today, but they've got some really cool things. There's a building out back dedicated just for SWAT. And it's not just for Polk County SWAT, it's for other municipalities, and they've got it set up to where they can breach different doors and pull hostages out, and you can stand up on the second floor and watch. They've got a place where they've got ambulances that come in, or modified ambulances, and the EMTs and paramedics will work on different emergency situations. They've got a room where you can go in with a gun that they provide you. It's the same weight and feel of what the police officers use, and there's a video screen, and you can be a real life situation. And this is how they train their mind and train their muscles to react. And it could be a woman standing there with her back to you, and the police officer comes up, which is you, and you say, turn around, and you don't know what they have in their arms. They could turn around with a baby, they could turn around with a gun, and this is what our officers have to deal with every day, and they make these split-second decisions. So this building is an amazing building. I think this auditorium can be used for rent. I know we've had a number of functions here, so please take advantage of it. And I thank you for putting up with me.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would like to thank Polk Vision as well for putting this event together every year and for inviting me to be moderator this year. It's been a privilege to get the opportunity to speak to each of you and hear about what's going on in your community. So at this point, I will turn it over for the final close to Donna and Matt, who just have a few closing words.
So I'd just like to thank you all for coming today, taking time out of your busy calendars to be part of this important community discussion. I'd like to thank Polk Vision, Kim Long, the Polk Vision team for everything they do to put these productions together. I'd like to thank the mayors. Thank you for your time, for your vision, for your leadership. To new mom Katie for moderating us today. But before we go, we do have one big plug to do. There was a lot of discussion about the constitutional amendments that are going to be on the ballot, and Polk Vision is, again, taking the lead on that as well. So on October 4th, we have a save-the-date, ballot-ready 2018 event just down the street here at the ProCap room on October 4th. So invitations are forthcoming, but if you could get that on your calendars now, I think it would be an excellent opportunity to see firsthand exactly what you are voting on. So on behalf of my co-chair, thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time.